Alright, so Kamala Harris has said that nearly 183,000 Americans have died from coronavirus, more than 16 million out of work, students across the country can't go back to campus, and more than 110,000 small businesses closed for good. This is Trump's America, according to her. Now, I don't actually like this for a few reasons. I mean, number one, not for nothing, some of those deaths she mentions were at least caused by Cuomo and his sending of sick senior citizens with COVID into nursing homes, which, despite the fact that I think the fear of COVID is vastly overblown, that was a terrible idea because the evidence from the beginning was that vulnerable people, which includes the elderly, are who you want to be very mindful of. Putting a bunch of people with COVID into a nursing home is an insane decision, and furthermore, these lockdowns and this hysteria likely caused more deaths because so many people who should have gone to the hospital for other reasons were extremely fearful to do so, and people likely died who otherwise would not have, if not for that fear. Now, I am about to criticize Trump, don't worry, but one thing I won't say is that Trump stoked that fear. He was actually saying a lot about how he wants to get rid of the lockdowns and open the economy. It was her, Kamala Harris, her friends, and many of her colleagues that did that. So she and her buddies bear some of the guilt there. She shouldn't be trying to cast it all off. But besides that, I don't like this tendency to blame Trump for everything and say this is Trump's America, because it isn't and it shouldn't be. This entire idea comes from some sort of knee-jerk reaction to think that one person, the president, should be responsible for everything. That is a horrible way to think, and certainly a terrible way to think of how things should be, and if that is how things are, your number one priority should be to change that. Trump should not be so powerful that all is to be laid at his feet, good or bad. And the fact of the matter is that fairly large numbers of governors played a huge hand in making terrible decisions that led to more death that Kamala Harris is putting entirely on Trump. Not that I'm Trump's number one fan, but that is an insane thing to do. Now here's the interesting one. Kamala Harris says that 16 million people are out of work and 110,000 small businesses are closed for good. Okay, that is horrible, no doubt, and we were headed in that direction anyway with our bubble economy, and Trump was no help at all with that. With all of his begging of Jerome Powell to keep interest rates low, he was doing his best to keep that bubble not only inflated, but pumping it up more and more. The COVID lockdown was just the pin that poked the bubble. But the weird thing here is that the 16 million people out of work and the 110,000 small businesses that have died off are that way now because of the iron fist that prevented any significant amount of economic activity from taking place. You were not allowed to leave the home, or you weren't allowed to work. Your suppliers were shut down, you weren't allowed to have any patrons, or you were only permitted to have half the patrons you need to turn a profit, or you were forbidden from hiring more people. The lockdowns have been horrible for everyone, with disastrous secondary results too. But the odd thing is that Kamala here has a running mate, Joe Biden, that said he would not hesitate to issue a nationwide stay-at-home order if scientists said it was necessary. Kamala Harris was right next to him during this interview where he said he would shut it all down, and to my knowledge she did not push back on it. She went right along with him as this warrior against COVID. Okay, so you would do precisely the same thing that nuked the economy. So who are you to blame anyone? You seem to agree and enthusiastically support precisely the same measures that laid waste to everything. I mean, I'm all for ending the Fed, and the way it's often described is having to take some very bitter medicine. The withdrawal will hurt, there will be pain, but long term it's massively beneficial to have an actual real economy. I don't think the pain our economy would have suffered would have been much worse than simply grinding all economic activity to a halt, which is more like a bullet to the chest. And this is precisely what Kamala seems to be in favor of. So she doesn't get to cast blame anywhere. She is as much of a part of the problem than whoever she is pointing her finger at. But that is all for now. Like, subscribe, and take it easy.